plant and animal adaptations from the New Canaan Nature Center. Hi everybody, it's Derick Hips again, the Animal Care Manager here at the New Canaan Nature Center. Today we're going to continue talking about animal adaptations, and more specifically, how those adaptations help them live in different ecosystems and different habitats. I have here a board that will get to guess which habitat these animals would live in. For example, forest, pond, wetlands, or meadow or field. So I'll bring out the animal. You'll get to see the adaptations. We'll talk about the adaptations a little bit, and then we'll have to match that animal up to which habitat or habitats you think you would find this animal living in, based off of what those adaptations are. For example, would a rabbit be swimming in a pond? Probably not, right? So we're going to be talking about those, and we'll get started right now. I want to see if you can get closer. This is Bandit. Bandit is a ferret, and a ferret is a type of a weasel, okay? Type of weasel. The weasels that live here in Connecticut sort of look like this. Most of them are on the smaller side, not quite as big as this, but we do have some weasels living right here in Connecticut, right here in New Canaan, Connecticut. We have different types of weasels that live here. We have ermines, we have the long-tailed weasel. In the weasel family, we actually have martens as well. And river otters are actually in that same family too. They're not quite a weasel, but they're in the same family, which is kind of cool. Mustelidae is the family that all of these animals that I just mentioned. Do you guys want to try it? Mustelidae. But this ferret right here, they actually came from an area in Europe, so Western Europe, and the European polecat is the animal that they derived from. So this is a domesticated version of a weasel. Okay, it's a domesticated weasel, and its ancestor is actually the European polecat. They're very different from the ancestors. They are much smaller than the European polecat. If you look at this guy, he's very slender, very skinny. Okay, very healthy though. Their ancestors are pretty chunky. They're more thick in the body and a little bit shorter. But they do have a little mask on their face, so they kept that. And they also, there's another thing they also kept as well, and that is their stink. They smell. And that is so that they protect themselves out in the wild. And they also mark their territory with that smell as well. We have a lot of them. I won't give it away as to which ecosystem they live in yet. But we have a lot of them living, let's just say, in very special hiding places. So we'll get to talking about that in a second. But what do you think? Okay, just by looking at this ferret, okay, look at its face. He has very sharp canines. That means he eats what type of food? More meat or more veggies? If he said meat, you are correct. He is a carnivore. You would never catch this little guy eating a dainty salad. He just won't do it. So let's see. Which habitat would he live in? We just talked about his face. He has very sharp teeth. There are animals living in the forest that he can eat. There are animals living in the pond that he can eat. There are animals in the wetlands that he can eat. There are also animals living in the meadow that he can eat. So that doesn't really help us too much, right? But we'll keep moving down. Let's look at his body as a whole here. What's covering his body? Does he have scales? Not quite. Does he have feathers? Not quite. Does he have slime like an amphibian? I don't see that, I don't feel it. No, he has fur, right? So, get a closer look again. See all that fur covering his body? It keeps him warm in the winter time, so they can live here. So, let's see. So we talked about their skin covering, all right? So, let's try this again. Could it live in the forest, having all that fur? Sure it could. Forest gets cold in the winter. I think that it could live in the forest based on just having fur. You think you can live in the pond? That's a tricky one, right? Because there are some animals that have fur that go into the water, like a beaver or a muskrat, right? So pond, wetlands, same thing, right? So wetlands, I don't know. A meadow or a field? Sure, right? I think they can run around that field with that warm fur, eating meat with their sharp canines. So it's tricky. It's really tricky to determine where they live just based on their structural adaptations. So let's see, let's go further and let's look at their feet. So, I don't know if you can see there. There we go. So if you check closely at that foot, he has padded feet, kind of like a dog or a cat. So if you have a dog or a cat at home, check out their feet. See what their feet look like. Their feet are very similar. They have those nice soft pads that allow them to walk and push and run, right? Kind of grip onto things. And they also have really sharp claws as well. Those claws will help them kind of climb up a little bit on a tree, mostly in shrubs, up and over logs, up and over rocks, because there's something that they enjoy eating that lives in those places. They need to climb and run and scoot really fast. I will tell you, they love to eat rodents. You might be saying this kind of looks like a rodent. Not a rodent, it's not in the rodent family. Their teeth are completely different. Rodents will have sharp incisors in the front. These guys will have, and we kind of looked at it earlier, they have those very sharp canines. These, the weasels do. So not a rodent, but they will eat rodents. They'll eat some birds. They'll even eat reptiles and amphibians. Anything small that they can really get their mouths on, that's what they're going to be eating. Okay, so that's kind of a behavioral adaptation, right? Something that they're choosing to eat. But their behavioral adaptations are based on what they have, because they're eating meat because they have those very sharp canines, right? So it goes hand in hand. Those adaptations they rely on. So let's do this again. Just gave some more clues there. So forest. Do rodents live in the forest? Do birds live in the forest? Do amphibians live in the forest? Yes, all of those things. And reptiles as well. Connecticut doesn't have too many reptiles. We have turtles. Pond. Rodents living in the pond? Yes, some do. But most rodents tend to live on land. It's a tricky one right there, right? So they could go next to a pond to eat a frog, but going into a pond and swimming, let's see, do they have webbed feet? Not really. Their fur, I'm looking at it, doesn't really feel oily. A lot of animals that live in the water have oily skin. So I'm kind of gonna rule out pond for a weasel. They'll be next to a pond, but going into a pond, not so much. Wetlands, possibly, right? So the wetlands, there are some dry areas where they can walk and get into that area without having to swim. So they can kind of still walk and find their food. I love to eat, like I said, frogs and salamanders, things like that, to get their energy that way. And the meadow or a field, we know there are a lot of rodents there, right? We can't just say that an animal lives in one habitat site. A lot of animals interact with a lot of different ecosystems. They can live in a habitat site, so their home or their shelter can be probably mostly in the forest, right? There's a lot of protection there for these guys. But they're also going to go into those other habitat sites. So to the pond, in the wetlands, in the meadow, and in the field. They'll go to these sites, but they're not necessarily using those sites for shelter. They're just going there for food or water. That's why when we talk about science, when we talk about animals and their adaptations, we have to really look at their whole body. And remember, we also talked about the behavioral adaptations too. It's not just about what they have in their bodies, it's how they act and what they can do, right? So we kind of have to watch them in action sometimes too to see where they can live and where they can't live. I'm going to leave you with a really cool fact. I thought this was interesting because if you look at this animal, the first thing I think of is, oh, he's so cute, right? But when we look at these adaptations that they kind of held on to, from their ancestors, those very sharp teeth that stink, right? If a predator is trying to eat this animal, they will fight back. So the polecat, let's talk about the European polecat. The European polecat, if he was getting eaten by a predator, such as a hawk or an owl, it's not over for them. These guys will fight back. They have those very sharp teeth. They turn, they bite them. If they bite them in the right spot, the back of their neck or on their spinal cord, they can kill that animal. So it has been noted, it has been seen that weasels, so a lot of weasels can do this. Weasels will take down birds of prey. Weasels can go after snakes. If they get in a battle with a snake, weasels can win. These guys are very skilled. So pretty cool animal right here that we're seeing. Even though the domesticated versions are very, very cute and very tame and very nice. But it is cool. It's cool to see with this domesticated animal, you can really see up close what those wild animals would be like, just looking at those adaptations that they still hang on to. So thanks guys, thanks for joining me today. Again, we will have more animals, I promise. I'll keep these videos coming. I hope you enjoy them. I enjoy showing you guys the animals and teaching you a few things. So tune back in. Who knows what I'm going to bring next time. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.